I mean, Amy's queen of food pics, but I do like to take her food.
They are good.
Yeah, they're very good. She's very good.
At the Connection.
I'm like, damn it, Amy's picture's better than mine.
I love this. This is good. This is good chat because these sound bites just make a glorious intro.
Oh, we're recording?
Oh, yeah, completely, yeah.
Jobsworth, Season 2, Episode 7, How to Craft Connections. Welcome to Episode 7 of Jobsworth, Season 2. This week I welcome the first of two dynamic duos you'll be hearing from this season, Bex Hyde and Aimée Johnson, founders of the Connection Ltd, a creative agency specialising in brand strategy for clients across a range of industries. Collectively, Bex and Aimée have years of experience working in creative roles with some of the world's biggest brands, as well as having launched a number of their own. In this episode, we'll discuss their individual career journeys to date and ultimately what led them to merge their talents and launch a joint venture. Bex and Aimée each have an interesting tale to tell. We talk about their experience in education and the jobs they found straight out of it, as well as covering some of the more challenging situations they've found themselves in that would play a pivotal role in how they viewed their relationship with work moving forward. I also get their view on what it's been like setting up a business together, the importance of transparent communication, the value of being able to identify your strengths and weaknesses, and how their partners really feel about phones being out at the dinner table. This episode is a lesson in overcoming uncertainty, the realities of following a less conventional path, and what it takes to develop the confidence to work for yourself. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to two people that specialise in crafting connections, probably why this episode's so bloody good, Bex and Aimée. I'm going to start with the opening question on the podcast, which is, and I'll ask you, Bex, first.
Okay.
When you were younger, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh. I always knew what I wanted to be. I just wanted to be a fashion designer from as young as probably 8 or 9.
Wow. Okay.
I was always really, really focused, maybe too focused in hindsight, but my mum was a seamstress when we were little, so she used to make like ice skating costumes for like performers and stuff, and she had a little studio at home, and I'm one of 4 and the others weren't really interested, but I used to love it. I'd go up there and there'd be all the Swarovski crystals and always loved it. So she'd walk off and I'd try and sign her machine and totally fuck it up, and she'd come up like, who's been on my... So yeah, very, very young. Okay. I knew what I wanted to do.
Yeah, awesome. And Aimée, what about you?
Aside from probably being a bit deluded when I was really young and thinking that I could be like a dancer or something,
okay,
like a backing dancer.
Okay,
which I don't know where I was going with that.
What was the inspiration? Did you ever see anyone? Was this watching like, I don't know, MTV or something?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, okay.
And I did love dancing, but I never really wanted to be the main attraction.
Yeah.
But obviously you're still on a stage, so at that point, you know, people are looking at me, so then panic would set in.
Yeah.
But then probably from like, you know, like teenage years and going to uni where I studied English, don't know why, just because it was just something to do and a degree to get. But yeah, from that point, always wanted to work in fashion in some way. Okay. But I could never really figure out how, because it wasn't so obvious to me like as it was with Bex. Like it wasn't about like designing clothes or making them necessarily. It was just something in the world of fashion.
Was that more because Bex maybe had a direct inspiration?
Yeah, it could have been.
Her mum was a seamstress and you didn't necessarily have that around.
Yeah,
around
I had
you.
No one around me that would sort of like that maybe suggested how I could work in fashion.
You
I
knew
was
you
just
liked clothes
obsessed.
and fashion, but not how to make that an actual
how to earn
job.
money from that being like my industry. But so I kind of fell into buying through Kirk, actually. My brother, he went to uni with someone whose other half was working at Marks and Spencer in buying in women's wear. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So a fashion job where I'm not actually designing clothes kind of combines a lot of different skills. But
yeah.
So yeah.
It's interesting because that was such a straightforward answer to I knew what I wanted to be and subsequently went on to be. That's probably the most straightforward answer that I've had, because most people have gone around the houses a bit or had some I've had marine biologist, I've had vet, which neither of these people did then go on to be.
No, I think I just had my meltdown later.
Yeah. Oh, there's
I
meltdowns
felt like
coming. Yeah.
I really knew what I wanted to do, and then it all went to shit later when I was like, wait, I've always wanted to do this thing, and now I don't know if I love that. So what do I do now?
That's an interesting one.
Because I was so focused that my career was very, very important to me at a very young age, because I knew that I wanted to go to London College of Fashion. That was my goal. That's where I was going to go. And then I went there and I absolutely hated it. Hated every single minute of it.
Why?
Because I'd been warned when I was at college, because I did a fashion like BTEC. And my lecturer, I was like, that's it, London College Fashion. And she was like, Bex, I don't know if it's the right fit for you. Like, I get that you want to go there because of what it is, but I don't know how well you're going to get on there, because they very much like to mould their designers in a certain way. And I don't know how well you're like that. What about Central St Martin's or like Bristol there? And I was like, no, LCF. And it was horrible. It was like that really old school fashion vibe as well, where you'd present and they'd rip up people's coursework in front of everyone. It was really quite brutal.
Brutal is the word that's coming to mind, yeah.
And they very much prioritised the international students. That was made exceptionally clear. Like in my class, 80% were international students.
Right.
And they had very much, when I was there was a real aesthetic they were going for, a real like Comme des Garçons, Rei Kawakubo, like sculptural aesthetic, and that just wasn't me as a designer. And I didn't want to play the game, and you sort of had to. So I left after a year.
So that warning that someone had given you was kind of on the nose, wasn't it? They saw something in you that knew in a way wasn't going to connect, but you'd, in the best possible way, they also knew that you were very headstrong and wanted to go and do that.
Yeah.
Was it the gravitas around the place?
It was pure ego, I think. I just wanted to be like, that's the place that is the most well regarded that's where I want to go.
That's going to make me the most credible
when
I go out into the world and start looking for actual jobs in that field. Yeah.
And then I just sort of ran away. I came home and I went back to Essex University, where I went to college, and I did a fashion communication and marketing degree, and I absolutely loved it.
Right.
Because I could touch all the other things. And then while I was there, I set up my first brand, designing. So it was a weird concoction of things.
It's a running theme. I speak to a lot of people that have a very clear idea what they want to do with their career, and then they do it. And then, because you have to scratch that itch, don't you? Unfortunately, you have to go a little way down that path to realise, shit, this is not actually a thing I want to be doing. And whilst there's still very strong ties to that original dream of I want to be a fashion designer, and what you're doing now and the things that you've done over the course of your career, you have to do it. Unfortunately, you've got to go through it, so get your war wounds and then come out the other side, hopefully a little closer and a bit more informed about where you want to go.
I've definitely had a few of those.
Well, we'll talk about that in a bit more detail. I'm going to take it back a couple of steps, because I'm always interested about what people were like at school, because I think that shapes and informs maybe what you do go on to do, or what you were told you can go on to do.
Yeah.
Because I'm a big focus on the career guidance, because I always think about my career guidance I had. I had a lot of inspiration around me in my mum working for herself and people in my life, but career guidance was just absolutely shocking. So I'll start with Aimée. We went to school together.
Yeah.
You were a school year below me.
Yeah.
But I didn't particularly know you well. You were the sister of one of my best friends. What was school like for you? What was your experience like?
I enjoyed school.
Yeah.
From an education point of view, I found it fairly straightforward. I think I'm someone that learns. I think that I lend myself to the system that doesn't suit everyone, but it works fine for me.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I guess maybe am I quite an academic person or something? I just found everything quite straightforward.
Yeah.
So I didn't struggle too much to just like tick the boxes and get the answers right. I'm not saying I was like a huge whiz at everything.
But you could take that information in and answer a question based on what you've learned.
Yeah, and I could also have a little chat with my friends and have fun and still kind of get to where I needed to be. And it was quite a relaxed sort of way of learning, and school was just something you did. And
so what was the transition like? Did you go to college?
I did, yeah.
And what was the transition into college like?
I enjoyed college. I enjoyed uni. I think I do enjoy learning stuff. I'm not so good at like the social side of stuff. I'm not great at like selling myself in a room full of people. So going from education and just having to like write down the answers and get them right, and that was fine, into a work environment, into an office where that's fine if you know what you're doing, but you need to let everyone else know that you know what you're doing.
Yeah, the way
where I struggled.
Yeah, so I describe that as advocating for yourself.
Yeah,
like banging the drum to say, here I am, I need to be valued.
Yeah,
right.
I'm like, come on, Aimée.
Yeah,
you've got this.
Yeah, I'm really, really bad at it.
Which again, outside looking in, we'll go on. There'll be people that know just from your name what it is you do.
Yeah.
But outside looking in, no one would claim that you have that mindset or have that view of yourself.
Yeah.
In my personal opinion,
it's the beauty of social media.
It's a bit of a contradiction, isn't it?
Yeah,
but I kind of like
it is. Yeah, and people would think, why do you put pictures of yourself on the internet now if you don't think? Yeah, it's a weird combination, but I guess I'm in control of what I share, so that's fine.
Yeah,
and I am obsessed with fashion, that's why I'm doing it.
And it's a creative outlet.
Yeah.
It's not, you're not a model.
No,
like, we have this
absolutely not
conversation
trying
quite
to be,
often because people are like, oh, but you're models. We're like, no, we're not at all.
No.
The content that we share separately, although very different to each other, is about the overall aesthetic. It's about the product. It's not about us as people, if that makes sense.
I do know what you mean. Yeah, because maybe a model, if they're listening to this, I don't know how many models we have listening to this podcast, but a model might counter that with, well, I may be doing the same thing, but in promoting themselves, like posting pictures of themselves without necessarily thinking about a brand they're trying to promote or something. I get that difference, but I'm just wondering what they might think of hearing that. Because the dictionary definition, you could argue, is you're wearing something and you're being photoed, and you are the sort of, for want of a better expression, like the clothes horse. If you were doing that, you are the canvas.
Yeah.
So, but I understand where you're coming from.
But it is interesting, but people do say that, don't they? They're like, oh, well, do you want a model for it? And I'm like, I'm not a model. Yeah. They're like, but isn't that what you do?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, it's not what I do.
Yeah.
I put clothes on and take pictures of them.
Yeah, it's very different.
I make things out of metal and wear them. What do you mean?
So, go on, Bex, Aimée, just to sort of, I guess, summarise your experience at school. School, let's say, I spoke to Andy, who we all know, Andy on the last one, and I used the term academic to describe or not describe him in a way. And I thought we found that quite jarring, because I think it is a bit of an old school, maybe outdated term now, academic or being book smart.
Yes.
And I don't think it's as applauded as it used to be, but it sounds, if we can use it, that you were quite academic at school, college, into university, doing English. And now doing what you're doing, there are obviously benefits from doing English, but it's not a direct... No. You've not directly benefited from that.
And I think maybe that's part of the reason why it's taken a little while to find where I think I fit or where I feel comfortable, because you're like, these creative skills aren't sort of encouraged at school, really, unless you're putting pen to paper. You're an artist. You're in the very literal sense.
Work that's on the wall.
If you've got loads of creative stuff going on in your mind about whatever it may be, fashion, interiors, any of those things, you don't really get a chance to exercise that through education. So that was my yearning. That's why I was obsessed with fashion. I was like, I must work in it in some way. But none of that's ever discussed at school in school years. It's just, if you put pen to paper, then you're arty or you're creative. But you don't discover that you're creative in any other way, really.
No, and I also think it was quite unattainable. I had that a lot. People were like, you need to have realistic expectations.
Yes,
you're not going to be a fashion designer.
Yeah.
Which seems crazy now, because I'm like, well, of course you can, because they need designers all over the world.
Yeah.
But not from my immediate family, but I remember my auntie once being that I'd done all these drawings and these designs, and Mum was like, show auntie. And I showed her, and she was like, I mean, they're lovely, but you're never going to make it as a designer. People just don't do that. Why don't you try and do accounts or something? And I was like, sorry. It barely add up.
Well, I think this is going back to the career guidance and the expectations that are around us, because we're all similar ages.
Yeah.
So going into that at that time, college for me, coming out of doing A-levels, it was like, so you're going to, you've got a couple of options. You can go into the city and work in an office, or you can go and learn a trade. That was really it. No one was opening your eyes to I look at what some people do for a living now, and I'm like, why did no one tell me that was a route I could have gone down? And there is no age that you can't follow that. But it's a hell of a lot easier if I'm doing it at 19, 20 than 37.
And you've got the energy.
and not having 2 kids and all that stuff.
Exactly.
So going to Bex, what was your experience at school like?
I struggled at school.
In what way?
So I was quite a sickly kid. I had quite a autoimmune, really bad asthma. And when I was at primary school, I really, really struggled because you wouldn't realise it now because I'm a loudmouth, but I was very shy and I was quite ill. So at primary school, I'd just be like, oh, I don't feel well. And they'd be like, okay, just go and sit in the corner. And I'd sit in the corner, in the book corner, and I'd suck my thumb.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get too cold because it'd play my asthma up so I wouldn't go out and play with the other kids. And so it was getting quite bad. And my mum was getting really, really cross with the school. And they were like, you have to make her do it. She's 7, 8 and she can't read.
Yeah.
And she can't write.
You've
got to... You need to stop doing it. You have to make her...
they were sort of appeasing you. They were like, oh, Bex is saying this, rather than trying to coerce you into actually getting involved or getting things done.
I was one of 35 kids, I guess, and it was easier to just... I wasn't trouble. I'd sit in the corner quietly and they'd probably forget I was there. Oh. So I started having a private tutor because my mum was like, this just isn't... We need to do something about this. And I got on really, really well with her on a sort of a one-to-one basis. So on the back of that, my parents definitely weren't affluent by any stretch then, but they sent me to a private school where my tutor worked.
Right.
Because my mum and dad thought I'd be better in a much smaller group where I couldn't be invisible, really. And that was the making of me because it really, I couldn't hide. Yeah. I couldn't get away with not doing it. And I was really overwhelmed, I think, I was not an academic at all. And the class size and the personalities and all that sort of thing. And I very much retreated in myself, and going to my school really brought it out of me. But I definitely wouldn't say that I did okay. I did better in things like art and textiles, obviously. But it was quite hard for me, and I'm not good in an exam situation. Okay. I found that very, very hard. But then I think I loved college when I was actually doing what I wanted to do, but I'd sit in maths or science. Actually, I like science because I had a really good teacher, but my maths
makes a big
teacher
difference,
was
doesn't it?
Awful.
Right.
And she had the most monotone voice, and I just used to fall asleep.
So you get to the end of your time at private school. So you've gone from 8, 9 years old, were you at that time?
Yeah.
Transitioned to that, and then you did that all the way through secondary school. Yeah.
So I actually. This is very me, but everyone was sitting there 11 plus, and I was like, absolutely not, I don't want to do it.
Right.
And my parents are very like that. They're like, it's on your terms. My older sister didn't, my brother and my younger sister did and went on to grammar schools. I did not want to put myself in that position. So I just didn't do it. I just wanted to stay there.
Yep.
Which was good for me, I think. It really built my confidence and my personality to actually be a bit braver and Mum and Dad sent me to like drama school, like at the weekends and like summer camps, which like was so out of my comfort zone. But I think I hold that very much now. I think that has really, really helped me. And there were some elocution lessons which haven't quite stayed with me. The Essex accent is very...
There's nothing wrong with that, Bex.
Yeah, Essex and proud.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
It's very there. But I think that really helped me to like be able to present in like meetings and like hold my own ground, where if you saw me at 7 or 8, you wouldn't believe
Well,
that.
this is, I guess this is the concern listening to that at 7 and 8, and I've got a 6-year-old or soon to be 6-year-old. So I think, I mean, he sounds from your description of yourself like the opposite. Like he's, if anything, he needs to tone it down. But, you know, if that hadn't been identified by your mum, you could have
I'd
very
got lost.
easily
Yeah.
been lost in the system,
totally.
and yeah, who knows what that could have led to.
Yeah, and my mum's was definitely my advocate, where she was up the school all the time. Like,
Yeah, that's
this
amazing.
This just isn't right, and I'm incredibly lucky that I had someone like that fighting
Fighting your
for
corner.
me. Yeah.
Where are you in? So you've got siblings. So you're one of 4.
Yeah.
Where are you?
I'm
Third.
I'm third. Yeah.
Third. Okay. So yeah, I guess your mum had a bit of practice, maybe seeing a couple of older siblings go through processes and was able to do that. I'm trying to think of the cliche that people use. I think it's like your first child or your first couple of children grow up with you, and then you actually raise your second and third.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because you, as a parent, and I can attest to this, like my youngest is going to grow up a much more rounded individual than my oldest, because he's going to have all the issues that I had when I was trying to raise him.
And my mum's very vocal about that, actually,
Yeah.
because she was like, God, when we had your sister, who was the eldest, she was like, we tried so hard to have her. She took so long, and then she came and she screamed for 5 years, and we were like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And we were just, like, trying to figure it out. And whereas I think, and she says that she was so over precious of her.
Right. Yeah.
She's like, I think I was just like, we tried so hard for you, and then you were here, and I was so worried about her like falling over or like anything. And by the time we've had 4, she's like, you'll be all right.
Oh my God,
And my
yeah.
mum's so like that now. She's like, have a bath.
Yeah. Well, it's the romanticised view of what parenthood is going to be like, and then the first one comes and you're like, oh shit, this reality is different.
Yeah.
That's a nice way of describing it. Okay, interesting. Right. So I'm going to start with you, Amy. From the moment you leave uni, you get your first job.
Yeah.
Give me like a whistle-stop tour that takes
okay.
us to the point of where you
Now.
meet Bex, and don't talk about what you've founded in your next venture, but get me there.
Get me
Okay.
there.
Yeah.
Okay. So I left uni and I interned at M&S, which was through my brother and someone he knew, and I kind of fell into the world of buying in women's wear, which I loved. And I was like, oh, wow, I can work in fashion, but there's so much going on in this business, like, you know, in this sort of skill set. And I kind of found somewhere where I thought, yeah, I could really stick with this. Annoyingly, I couldn't get a job there. They didn't have a vacancy. So I fell into homeware in M&S still. So they took me on. So straight out of uni, I'm now a buying assistant right at the bottom where you start, and in homeware, which was fine. I was still interested in it. I was still working with textiles. I was still learning all the skills.
There's synergy, isn't there, between fashion and homeware? Yeah.
I was still developing product and learning all the skills that you need as a buyer. And M&S, you know, in the head office, it was a great place to start and to learn. You know, you're really nurtured there, and I got to travel loads. And I kind of just worked my way up and never left homeware, which I was fine with because I was getting a pay rise and then, you know, going somewhere else.
Climbing the
flying
ladder
off
as you go. Yeah.
Making good friends and enjoying it. And obviously living my life at the weekends how you want to, because you're starting to earn a bit of money.
Still, were you living at home at this time as well? Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I would say after about 5-6 years, I thought, do you know what? I'm the fashion thing's never going to leave me. Like I need to get back over into that. And I just struggled. I couldn't. I don't know why. It just, you know, you had your experience now, and it was in homeware, and it was made to be.
You get
really
pigeonholed in that industry very easily.
But there's so many transferable skills. It's really not and depending on what company you work for, you're not necessarily buying what you love or what, you have to apply the buying mindset and look at commerciality of everything. If I'm doing that for cushions and rugs and curtains, I can do it for handbags and
do it
shoes,
for something you actually feel inspired by and
something I'm
passionate
obsessed
about.
with. And I was commuting every day into London and sitting on my phone, and Instagram was becoming a thing, and I was watching all these girls in these clothes and outfits and that's what I want to do. And then I'd get to the office and look at cushions and stuff. It was fine, but I was like, I don't know if it's...
Not knocking cushions.
Yeah, we love a cushion.
We love a cushion.
But I was talking about cushions a lot, and I was just like, I just want to talk about, dresses instead. But anyway, it kind of was, the crossover wasn't happening, and it would sort of go to the back of my mind. I left M&S and went to a few smaller companies, because you do kind of get stuck a little bit when you're of a certain age. I'd moved up quite quickly, but I was never going to be a buyer at M&S at the age of 27, 28.
And is that because the hierarchy or the structure?
I think so, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
People, it's time served almost. You've got people above you. Unless they leave or die, you're not going to go into those jobs.
They've put the time in, and they're 40, and you're going to have to stay where you are for another 10 years.
Know your place, basically.
All the while you're covering for that buyer a lot, because they may have had children by now, or and they're sick. And so you're getting to do all these great things. And I travelled when sometimes I was an assistant buyer, so I shouldn't have. But you have to be grateful for that, because
we're giving you something,
all these opportunities, and it is great. But then you think, well, I'm not being paid, and I'm never going to get that promotion for like a decade.
Interesting.
So I went to a few smaller companies, still furniture, home accessories, lighting, all that kind of stuff, and with the industry, with the internet landing and everyone saying, everyone's going to be shopping online, no one's going to go into a store anymore. Well, that was fine for clothes, and, women were starting to shop online all the time, but that will never happen when it comes to homeware and furniture, was the mindset.
Like, and that is the industry mantra almost, Okay.
And that's where it was going. Don't worry about it. No, we need this massive showroom on Tottenham Court Road. That's where all the budget needs to go. Don't worry about the internet. But of course, we buy everything online, a mattress, a sofa, even if it's bespoke, you're happy to buy it off. Not everyone is, but it is.
Oh, for the most part. Were you towing the line though, or did you have a feeling that this evolution was coming? It's hard to, because you're in an echo chamber, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm not sure going back. And then also, because my mind was so still in the fashion world, and that's where I wanted to get to, I'd be like, yeah, cool, if you say that about a sofa or a wardrobe, fine.
I don't care.
And then off I go to order what I'm wearing that weekend, because that's what we were all doing then.
Yeah.
But because of that, and the smaller companies that I was in, neglecting that side, a lot of them went under, and I was made redundant twice in 3 years.
Right.
With long periods in between then, struggling to get back into a buying job. And that's where things kind of went south for me in terms of confidence.
How old were you then, Aimée? Don't mind me saying.
29, 30.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I guess.
And that's an age, I think it's important to say, for the most part, most people when they're approaching 30 feel like, I should have my shit together by now. This is when you start to feel that societal pressure of, I should be part way up that career that I thought I would be going down.
100%,
Yeah, mine's changed in around then as well.
It's a tough age for it to happen.
I should have this figured out, and I haven't.
Yeah.
And I was going through horrible processes of like trying to get back into buying, putting together these amazing presentations for their collection, and going to 3 or 4 interviews, till they decided at the end they were going to go with someone else. And it
they make you put so much work in.
It would break my heart, and I'd be in tears, and I probably reacted, maybe that's dramatic to other people, but that rejection, I really, really struggled with that.
I can empathise with that, definitely.
And every time it was just such a massive knock. So in between, I was doing other jobs, locally, and just minimum wage stuff, and
getting the money in,
and then starting to feel even lousier about yourself, because you're like, why am I doing this? Like, 3 years ago, I was flying around India and having all these amazing meetings and presenting to people, and feeling important.
Yes, yeah. That
which
validation.
But that's how I'd got to that point, and how I felt. That's where I should be. What am I doing now? And then I fell into an awful, awful job, which was in buying interiors, homewares again, but it wasn't sort of like a high street brand. And it was horrendous. I hated it. And it was that was kind of like the last straw. It was quite a salesy environment. I developed a lot of anxiety because I was like, this is the only job that I've been offered in the last few years in the buying world, in the world that I want to be in. But it turns out I didn't really.
Yeah.
And so I just had anxiety every morning that I was going to lose this job, and I can't afford to lose this job. It's the only one I've been offered. I'm not good enough to do anything else. No one else wanted me type mentality. Yeah. And lo and behold, they didn't want to pass my probation period because they thought, you lack confidence. You don't speak up in meetings.
Wow,
and I'm like, no shit. Yeah. I'm terrified. I don't know what's happened to me.
There.
Yeah, I don't know what's happened to me, but I'm on edge. I'm not eating. I want to cry every morning when I get on the train. So yeah, after a few chats with my other half and my parents and everything, they were like, I was like, but I have to do it. And they were like, you don't have to do it. Just walk in tomorrow and quit. And I was like, okay, yeah, I guess I could do that. So I quit. And this was like January 2020. And I was like, I'm just going to take a few months, see what comes to me. And then the pandemic hit.
Okay. Yeah, it was similar for me.
Yeah, that takes me to a few more jobs, like low-key stuff locally, and then starting my Instagram, doing something that I love just for fun to see what happened.
Yeah.
And then fast forward a couple of years of still doing that. And then Bex being like, sorry, what are you doing? Because we need to do something together. There you go. There's that. I'm finished.
That was do you know what? That's perfect timing. Don't be silly. It's fine. And it's a really difficult task to try and do a whistle-stop tour of it. But thank you for that. And thank you for sharing in a very concise timescale. Yeah. Bex, no pressure. No, look, you take your time and...
Don't tell me that.
But yeah, talk to me then. So you decided... So you touched upon part of what you did, but take me back.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So while I was at uni, I'd worked as soon as I could. So from the age of 13, 14, I had a weekend job. So when I was at uni, I was working in retail. I was working in Miss Selfridge, and then I just wanted to do something cooler. I wasn't really a Miss Selfridge girl. But
a bit edgier?
Yeah.
Is edgier the right word?
Yeah, she's so edgy.
But I did love the salesy part of it, but it just wasn't for me. And I've always been obsessed with vintage and old things and rummaging. And I heard of someone that I loosely knew had a vintage company, and he sold on eBay. And I just reached out to him and said, if you need any help. And he was like, yeah, great. We just need someone to do the listings. Like, you can do it from home. We pay you per piece. But it'd be great to have someone with a fashion so that we're like using the right keywords and whatever. Because eBay was huge then for vintage. You could make really, really good money. So I started doing that, and it was great. I was earning more money because I could speed through these listings, and I loved it. If it's
pay per item, you can just
exactly.
I say churn it out with all due respect, but you can
And I've always been quite always been a grafter.
Okay.
I've always wanted to just like work and
she's
get
a shit done girl.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
I'm a think about it for too long girl.
Yeah,
but
I probably
backstory kind of
do too quick. I'm like, go, let's go. Yep. And then we're like, it's too much.
It's a good balance then from the sound of it. Yeah.
So I asserted myself a little bit more, and I started helping out with like taking shots of the products, and we'd get models in and I'd style them, and then I started helping him to source goods. So I'd go to the rag yards and we'd select things and be like, oh, this is a trend that's coming through. Let's try and find this or find that. And he was obsessed with getting into Topshop at the time.
Right.
To sell vintage in Oxford Circus, but they were tied into a long-standing contract with Peekaboo Vintage, so it just wasn't going to be an option. So I said, well, I can sew. I might as well use this. Why don't we just make a really small collection where we just, switch some back pockets and it's a bit of a loophole in.
Vintage but not
exactly and that wasn't really a thing then. So I made a little collection on my little domestic sewing machine. And he was like, yeah, great, I learned so much from him, James, because he was he came from a buying background, but he was a real marketer. So everything was always like, what's the story? Why are we doing it? How are we gonna make these Topshop buyers who have absolutely no idea who we are, how are we gonna make them notice this collection?
Understood.
So we came up with this idea to do like a missing carton, you know, like in America where you get like the missing children.
Yeah, got you.
So we sent them this like handmade milk carton with like, there's a missing parcel, and they had to find. I mean, it's hilarious now that you think these buyers actually went to do this, but they did.
That's brilliant.
And they went to find the box, and the box had all the samples in, and
That's
we
so
made
cool.
these like handmade brownies that had like icing that had the branding all over them.
That's so cool.
Yeah, people are going to be listening to that and stealing that idea again. That's going to come back in.
Brilliant. That was all James. It was brilliant. And then my little handmade things, and they were like, "Yep, great. You've got Oxford Circus, and let's just see how it goes."
What a win! Wow.
But then we were like, "Fuck! I've just got a domestic sewing machine. It's just me."
Wow.
I'm at uni, and so it was just me. Like, in
This
the
is all
evenings
still
making
while
these
you're at uni at
collections.
this point
I'm still at uni.
too.
Yeah.
Nice, Bex.
So
And this is the Ragged Priest. The Ragged
this
Priest
is the
was
Ragged
born,
Priest, yeah, and that's how it was born. It was always the Ragged Priest, but it was the new evolution of
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And it just got busier, so we had to get other seamstresses involved, and I was still at uni, so I had certain days, and it was really intense. And then the timing was quite good because I just finished uni and I was full time at Ragged. It had grown. We were in a few different top shops, much bigger space. And then Rihanna bought a pair of the shorts in Topshop and wore them to Coachella.
Oh my God.
And it was mental. It was a mental time in my life.
I'm going to interject just quickly.
Yeah.
What year is this? Because Rihanna,
God.
so a celebrity buying a pair of shorts before the advent of social wouldn't have meant so much unless they've been packed in them maybe, and then they're in the newspaper.
I don't know
but
how. It's got to have been 12, 13
because I'm just
so
trying to think, because that's a hell of a lot of focus on that without necessarily. I guess Instagram wasn't at its height. Then
No,
as well.
but it was very much like Daily Mail.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I've got in my head.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It was very much that, and they're like, Rihanna's wearing these really affordable shorts, which you can get.
Yeah.
So that's-
And I
that's
say
a-
she bought them. She probably didn't.
But she's wearing
someone
them.
else, but yeah.
Same.
She
Someone
walked
put her in them,
or
yeah.
someone,
She
and
liked,
they
yeah.
took them from the floor and whatever. And then she wore them on the stage with Coachella, and she was shot so many times with like Snoop Dogg and a massive joint in them, and like all these like with Katy Perry and all in these shorts.
In terms of product placement, that is the dream,
and she
isn't it?
continued to wear them.
Wow.
So there were a
Okay.
few other like moments when she was like packed wearing them, and well, the collection sold out overnight in store, and we were hand studying these shorts. So like everyone I knew was studying shorts because we just couldn't cope with demand.
Amazing.
And it was amazing, but crazy. And then we did our first trade show in Berlin where we made this insane stand, and we had a queue at Bread and Butter Trade Show. We had a queue going to the back of the room for this tiny little, like we couldn't, like there were queues to take orders.
Wow.
But the problem was we were making them from vintage Levi's, so trying to find enough
You've got
of
to
it,
source them all,
trying
yeah.
to get them made.
Wow.
It was crazy, and then we got sued by Levi's.
Did you?
Yeah, or attempted to get sued by Levi's
Wow.
for using their products, and we were given an ultimatum: you send us every item of Levi's stock that you have, you cease using them, and I think we had to pay a bit of a penalty, or we take you to court.
Wow.
Wow,
And it
that's really turned, hasn't it?
Yeah,
I think,
really.
what a story.
Oh, it was horrendous. Like, it was really scary.
I'm going to interject
Yeah.
because now I'm fascinated by this. You are someone that has known you wanted to work in fashion from 8-9 years old. Do you feel when you've got this, when you know that Rihanna's worn a pair of the shorts that you've made and then gone on to like this spiraling kind of height, is that the point where you feel like, is there an element of you that thinks, I made it?
No.
There wasn't
I've never
any
really
part of
been
that.
like, I was proud of myself. And I was like, this is really cool what we've done, but I'm not really like that person, I don't think, that's like, this is good. And that's proven itself like over and over again for me, because I'm like, keep chasing what's next or what's
I speak to a lot of people like that. I think I'm probably like that as well. I just feel maybe if you as an adult were telling the 8-year-old you, do you know one day Rihanna's gonna or like some international superstar's gonna be wearing your clothes, they probably would have thought, that sounds good. That's like top of the mountain for me. That sounds pretty cool.
I don't know that I was particularly celebrity driven though. I think maybe that's part. Don't get me wrong. Incredibly grateful.
Still pretty fucking cool.
It was a great accomplishment. Rihanna, if you're listening, I love you. You're great.
We'll help with your branding.
Yeah. But I wouldn't say that like my focus to be a designer was for celebrities to wear it.
Understood. Yeah.
It was like creating beautiful and cool product. So it was a big win.
Okay.
And I loved it, but yeah.
So top of the mountain, let's say.
Yeah.
Ish. By others, externally it could have been viewed like that.
I'm not Chanel, sadly.
but to then come crashing down from this lawsuit, how do you recover from that? What's next for you?
It was really tough. One thing I will say about me, which is why I think I always love vintage and the reworked thing, is I love solving a problem. I'm actually better when I'm under a lot of pressure and I need to think myself out of a situation.
It's brutal. It sounds like a brutal way to work. I'm not saying it's
good for my health or my mental well-being, but I do like that, which is why I always liked reworked vintage, because you've got this garment and you're like, right, there's this trend or there's this something else. How do I turn this crusty old skanky shirt into whatever this is? Yeah. And I've always loved that.
Right.
I'm less like, I'm going to draw this lovely drawing and source this beautiful fabric. Although I do like that too, I like the problem solving element of that. So when things got very dark and it was really, really hard, I sort of thrive in that situation. And then I was young and the stress didn't have quite as big, or I didn't realise it was having as bigger impact as it maybe was.
Yeah.
And the two owners were just destroyed. Like they just didn't know what to do. It was obviously huge. Like they'd had a lot of personal investment. There was a lot of like house guarantee, like to underpin how fast the company had grown so quickly.
Yeah.
And then to potentially lose it all. And I was their like right hand. So we were all in these meetings together, like, what do we do? And I was like, we just recreate the Levi's. But we know when we get thousands and thousands and thousands of pairs of these jeans that a big chunk of them don't fit right. And we have to throw them away. Let's just produce our own jeans that we can order in big quantities and we can turn them into 30 different styles, because we can cut them ourselves. We can sell them as jeans. We can dye them pink. We can stud them. We only have to buy one lot and we make the dream fit of the 100 pairs that we find that are perfect.
Right, yeah.
So that's what we set about doing. We started actually, but no one had done it before. I hadn't done it before either. So we were like, right, we've got to find factories. We've got to source the right denim. We've got to do CAD packs. We need to do fit testing. We need to
because they needed a fashion buyer.
Yeah.
That's what they needed.
You needed to meet earlier.
But it wasn't. It didn't happen then. We went.
Yeah.
Paths went intertwining. Yeah.
So that's what we did, and it came around, and then we started producing more in factories and doing less vintage, and then Ragged became not vintage at all, and then I set up another brand for them to sell to ASOS and to Urban Outfitters.
What brand is it? Can you mention the brands that you've created?
Yeah. So Milk It was the brand that we created for ASOS. So we had a really close relationship with the ASOS team, and I loved them then. And they were like, Bex, we love Ragged now and we think it's really cool, but we feel like we're missing that thing. And I was like, be fine, I'll make it for you.
I'll go. You said then. You loved the ASOS team then.
Oh, only because I'm sure they're all lovely now, but I don't know them.
Fine. Okay. I didn't know if there was another story that you wanted to tell.
No. There was a really strong buying team that we worked with then, and
Understood.
I had a really good relationship with them. So they trusted us a lot to be like, we've got this gap. Can you do it for us? Because we'd rather work with you, and and that's what we did. And then we did the same for Urban Outfitters, and not many people could cope with that volume of vintage, but we could. But it was tough because you're like, Urban are like, we want 800 vintage orange sweatshirts. We're like, cool. They're going to be like 60 different shades of orange. And they're like, no, they need to be the same. You're like, it doesn't work like that. So there was a lot to like navigate. Now the retailers are much more set up to do that, but then they weren't really. And we had all sorts like leather jackets that we found hypodermic needles sewn into the, like mad stuff, because you're buying vintage. Or like we'd sell some shorts and leather shorts that someone hadn't checked the crutch properly, and they'd be, because it's
because they were someone else's.
And we're like,
but this is a dream for someone like James who wants to tell a story.
Oh,
here's
he's
your
got
story.
some stories. We've got some great stories. I'll let him come on and he can tell some.
We might need to do a call-in bit on the edit. I think and just have a few.
James, I love you. I'm sorry.
Here's your shorts and here's the story.
And then things were getting a bit. I'd been there for a long time. Me and James, I love him, but we clashed heads a lot. And I was the sort of in between of the finance, and it was tough at times, and the stress was really taking its toll on me. And then I got headhunted by someone else to come and have a chat, which I did. And they offered me to come and work for them. They'd fund the team and I could create whatever brand I wanted to. And I did.
Right.
And that was really, really hard because I had to hand in my notice, and it was very emotional because we were a family and everyone cried. I had these two grown men who I loved and respected and cared a lot about, like, in tears. I was in tears. Like, all my best friends worked there. But I felt like it was time. So I did. And then I created a brand, built a team, sold it to ASOS. Then they were like, well, what about what you did for us there? Could we create some different brands with you guys? Because I'd basically gone to work for a jewellery supplier who supplied everyone from Marks and Spencer's to Misguided to all of Arcadia, Mother Care. They did everyone, but they wanted to get into clothing, which is why they brought me on.
Right.
And ASOS were like, there's a really big opportunity here to cross over into like jewellery and accessories and clothing, and you've got the infrastructure to be able to support it. Because that was a massive problem they wanted to bring in these indie brands, but the indie brands couldn't cope with...
It's the supply of it, isn't it?
You
can have the brand, but you need to deliver as well.
Exactly. So I went there, I created about 6 or 7 brands within a very short space of time.
Yeah.
I then got promoted to be associate wholesale director with my merch head. We were running a London office. We were covering all of the wholesale. And I'm quite good in the sales meeting, so it worked quite well for me. And I worked my way up very, very quick. And then I was like, right, I'm on this now. I want to be on the board. I want to get to director. Wow. And I did within 3 years of being there. I was the youngest they'd ever had. No one new had come into the business and done anything like that, really. And I got to creative director and I sat on the board and I was like, God, this is shit.
Why was it shit? Just didn't match the expectations of what you had.
I think
what it would
the
look like.
problem for me was I am financially driven to a certain aspect, and I also want to really enjoy what I do. The further I got up, yes, the money got better, the perks got better, but I got further and further away from the job.
Yeah, the engagement in actually what you're doing day to day, the process.
And my job was having a meeting every 45 minutes from the minute I got into the office to the minute I left, signing off other people's ranges. And
not building them.
And it's just tearing other people. And I feel like I was nicer than that, sorry. But
having to be critical of other people's
stuff,
and
it was a lot of HR and budgets, and I went through 3 sets of redundancies, like making people redundant, and it killed me. Absolutely killed me, especially towards the end. At the beginning, the redundancy that was happening made business sense, and I could morally and ethically. There were some things that happened later which I felt like weren't fair. Yeah,
they went against your moral compass maybe a little bit, or like your values
not because they actually did anything wrong, but I felt like these people were maybe paying the price for us not having a clear strategy, from them trying to do crazy business things or create these brands with like massive store rollouts. I had huge imposter syndrome being on that board, because I'm like, these P&Ls, I just don't understand half the time. Like I'm sitting in these, I'm like, I just want to make things look cool. I just want to like market. I don't really like, and I was privy to stuff that maybe I wasn't. It just wasn't great for me. I was traveling a lot. I was traveling about 10 times a year. I was going to China 4 or 5 times a year. I'd be away for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. Spend a lot of time in Asia, India. It was taking its toll on me personally, traveling that much, and also my home life, my family life. And I was, like you were saying, I wasn't eating. I was like losing weight left, right and centre. I was emotional all the time. I started to really, really struggle, and they started to put the pressure on more and more. And then I had a bit of a breakdown, I think. And they knew, I think, that they'd pushed me too hard. And I negotiated my way out. And they were amazing. And they let me take my brand with me.
Wow.
Which is amazing. But part of that process, I had to make 2 of my best friends redundant. One of them who was pregnant. It was a really, really dark time for me. And I left and I just was like, this is all I've wanted to do. And I just didn't know what to do with myself, because I was so focused on being design. I was so focused on this. I wanted to get to director, and I've just fucked it up. I didn't have the staying power. I wasn't tough enough, which I've done a lot of work on. And I realise now that it's not that I wasn't tough enough. No. It's that I wasn't invested in what they were trying to do. And I was struggling with my own moral, which is why I was finding it so hard. My body was saying, this is not you. But it took me quite a long time. I just felt like a total fuck up for a long time after that. And I'd have, people would see me flying all over the world and they're like, oh my God, you've got this massive career. And I was working in a coffee shop. Andy's coffee shop is the best thing ever.
He said the same himself. I mean,
it's so, we're so different, Bex and I, but there are so many similarities.
You can tell from there's a lot of synergy between your stories, and and again, I empathise with that situation, and again, this view from the outside looking in that you've got it, you're achieving what most people would really aspire to do.
Yeah,
that's kind.
And it's kind of like, well, no, but it is. It's like, and it feels like a privilege, doesn't it? And then to turn your back on that, you do have the element of that. I don't know, the conversation with yourself, which is, why are you doing this? Why can't you handle that shit?
I know,
you should be able
and
to
that's
deal
what
with that.
I just beat myself. And I've also, like we said, I've always been a grafter. I've always had like 8 things on at once, and I was suddenly at home, like, what the fuck
Not able
do
to
I
manage
do now?
that.
I'm like, I just need to do something. I couldn't just sit at home. I was like, Andy, do you need some help? And he was like, yeah, all right. You're my mate, we could just hang out all day. And I was like, this would be great. And it got me out the house, it got me grafting. That's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to work. I like couldn't be in my own head that much. And then I was trying to do freelance. That had sort of built up a little bit, and then COVID hit and it all went to shit. I hadn't been self-employed long enough to get any support at all. So things were sketchy for us at home as well, because we were both self-employed. So I was like, well, I've got this brand that's got a bit of a following. I'm just going to try and hustle. So I started buying vintage and selling it on Instagram stories during COVID, and it went insane. I would do like 4 or 5 grand at the weekend.
Wow.
On a Sunday, sitting in bed, selling vintage. It was just...
the dream.
It was insane. It was like mental. Okay. Ed would be like, can you just put your phone down and go to bed? And I'm like, it's another order! It's another order! And so, then I think that gave me a bit more confidence. And then I started making things and selling them on there, and then started shooting more on myself, which I'd never been... like front of camera, but I had to do it. It was COVID. You couldn't shoot it on anyone else. So it forced me to do that. And at first it would just be my head would be cut out, and then like gradually more and more. And then I started doing more freelance styling, and I started doing more of the brand strategy things. And then last year was my experimental year, where I was just like, I'm just going to get myself out of my comfort zone and do some other things, try and get myself out of this sort of funk and lack of self-confidence, which I definitely still had. And then tail end of last year, maybe sort of September, October, I got headhunted to go back to do a creative director role for a large alternative fashion company. And I was like, wow, I'm still like relevant. This is insane. And it was lovely, because they were like, there's only about 3 people in the UK that can do what you do. And we're talking to 2 of them. And it was amazing. I loved it. It gave me a bit of confidence that I still felt like, actually, I can do this. But I was like, do I want to go back to be doing it? There's a lot. I was scared of all the other side of this. I'd always said I wouldn't go back, but having this lovely salary put in front of you and this.
But you're mindful of those battle scars you picked up mental health wise, how that affected you.
Yeah, so I was really like, I don't know what to do. Like this, I mean, it'd be lovely for our family to have this support, but I'm also going to be travelling all the time again.
Yeah.
I'm going to be like not
so what's
around.
The balance look like?
Like, how do we manage this? And then I didn't get it. They were lovely about it, but we're like, we've gone with you're a bit of a wild card for us from a handwriting perspective. This person's just got it and it's an easier transition. And I was relieved, which I didn't think
shows you all you need to know, doesn't it?
Yeah. But it gave me some real thinking time where I was like, there's parts of that job that I really, really love and I don't touch now. I love the brand strategy. I love the getting to know the customer, how we talk to them. Like, I loved the marketing. I loved doing the creative direction on like the shoots and the campaigns and the socials. And I was like, why don't I just do that? So I started building something around that. And then I started having some chats with some other people, and there was a lot of thinking time, and I realised that I just don't like doing things on my own. I need someone to bounce off.
Yep.
And I have a lot of flaws. I'm very creative, but I can be chaos.
Aimée?
Yeah.
any views on that?
I say nothing.
Yeah.
And then me and Aimée started having some chats, and I was like, I think this is the perfect mix. And I think we'd gone through similar experiences. Yeah. I felt like Aimée was maybe in the space that I'd been in 6 months earlier. So I felt like I could be the encouragement for her to do it, and I felt in a much better space, and here we are.
Yeah. Just quickly to rewind from that, we went for a coffee and like a dog walk, probably about, do you reckon that was about 3-4 years ago? It might have been in lockdown. You were just
starting socials,
you were like allowed to go for a walk or something, and I'm not really sure why, but I probably messaged Bex or something. We've always been aware of each other's like industries, like skills, and obviously we live in a small town, so know who each other is and stuff like that. And it's really odd now how we're like a partnership. And people might say like, oh, where did you meet Bex? And I'm like, I don't really know, because
probably in the pink toothbrush.
We definitely knew each other as teenagers, like in that sort of
really?
Yeah. And I actually, Ragged used to be around here when it was. And I bought a vintage skirt, and I can remember it now, like high-waisted yellow pleated, like bright yellow pleated skirt from Ragged. So there's loads of like interwoven bits, like where we've kind of like had a chat, been like, oh yeah, that's helpful for me to know, or I have a good vibe after speaking to that person, and then we've gone off in our separate ways and carried on with something else and carried on with this. And now we're like, timing is everything. And now we're just like, oh, we could do this. And then, as you know, it's not been a thing for that long.
No.
But already we're like every day, like seeing each other, like there's a meeting, there's this, we've got to prep this. And it's just like, oh, right, okay, that's what was happening. All those times we met up or had a chat. All the seeds
were being sown to then grow up into what has now become the connection.
It feels quite organic,
yes,
doesn't it?
Very,
it felt like a very natural thing.
Yeah, and to the point where I was working for another friend's business, just like receptionist work, while I was trying to do my Instagram and trying to make that, an actual income rather than just like something really fun that earned me a bit of money. And, training with Ed at the gym, and then being like, oh, I could just like work here. It seems like a much better vibe. It's going to be good for just my mood and everything. And that only was last September. Yeah. And then that's the reason why my face was probably in Bex's, like, every day. She'd pop in, and then we'd talk about...
And we'd chat about work.
Socials.
How's it going for you? We're like, oh, it's so annoying that place is really good, but their socials are so shit.
Yeah. Oh, where did you eat this weekend? Oh, this place. Let me show you their Instagram. And it was just like, things we're obsessed with, and things we want to talk about, things we want to do.
Yeah, it's really interesting, because I talked to Ed, and I feel like I should explain who everyone is. You'll know, to anyone listening to this, you'll know it. Just listen to the whole season.
Ginger bar.
But Ed, like with Rom, which is in Leigh-on-Sea, it's a gym. Ed is the owner of that gym. I'm saying this to the listener, Bex, I know you know. Ed runs that
Familiar
gym.
With him.
And for me, it's like a real community hub in Leigh. That's my feeling of it. I've worked in and trained in loads of gyms over, I don't know, however many years, 18, 19 years. And what I love about Rom is that there is that real sense of community.
Yeah,
definitely.
And I feel like a load of connections have probably been made in there.
Yeah.
Not all that lead to someone going off and doing their own venture, but friendships, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And, I think that's an amazing thing. So it's great that was the final straw almost to make you think, why not?
And also,
this?
when you think of a gym, I mean, I certainly do. That's why I started training with Ed and relying on a PT. I'm overwhelmed, intimidated, like walking into a gym. And it's not like that with Rom. I mean, you wouldn't go into another gym probably and just start chatting to people, making friends. I don't know. They feel a little bit posy, a little bit standoffish. Yeah. And that it's, I think it's really unique for that, because, and actually like Ed as well has probably had a huge impact on me personally and my confidence and stuff. So then naturally that he's picked this person to spend his life with, of course I get on with that person as well. Do you know what I mean?
It's like the bridge.
It's really odd, but like between the two of them, they probably don't realise the impact they've had.
That's really lovely.
Stop it! You'll make me cry.
That is a really lovely thing to hear. We're not going to carry on selling Ed and Rom, but
No, it's a really nice thing to hear.
We've got space for about 5 members.
Yeah. I'm going to just ask you a quick question, Aimée, about what you were doing and what you started to do with posting on social and this presence that you started to build on Instagram. And I just want to talk to you about maybe some of the stigma and also some of the labels that you can be given. So influencer being one of them.
Yeah,
so,
they're so icky, aren't they?
Yeah, and I wanted to know, because it is a recognised label.
Yeah,
there is a company, we've discussed them, called Influencer now, that goes out and picks up all these people with online followings and uses them to promote brands. So what is your view of the label influencer? And I would assume you are, but are you aware of that stigma around the stereotype when we say the word influencer? Would you classify yourself as an influencer? All the faces. There's a face being pulled to that. Go for it.
I wouldn't classify myself as an influencer, but then I don't know, maybe I am. I suppose the whole idea for you sharing things, sharing ideas, styling tips, restaurant recommendations, whatever it is, you're influencing someone's decision on something that day. So yeah, I mean, it's a shame that it's become such a negative thing. I do
think societally there is just a stigma surrounding it, and that's not always a really positive one.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah,
but I would probably say a content creator is more of a, and it seems more fitting in that's the thing that I love to do. I didn't pick up the phone and think, I'm going to give this a go so that other people buy what I say they should buy. I did it because I loved the images that I was seeing, and I was inspired by other girls' outfits, street style pics, or, anything that they were sharing, and I wanted to have a go at that myself. I was obsessed with fashion. I loved choosing an outfit for a special occasion or a wedding. That sort of stuff was just like, would actually get me going. Oh yes, someone's doing this. What am I going to wear? How am I going to build this outfit? What's my look? So then just sharing that with other people just seemed like a really fun thing to do, and it was like flicking through a magazine.
I think the content creation label is definitely one that better embodies what you do as a profession and definitely as a skill set, because
it's not just about you, is it? It feels a bit broader, which feels less scary. Maybe.
Yeah, and you can have an agenda behind the content you're creating, which lends itself perfectly now to this collaboration as well. But you can have an agenda which is, I want to promote something, whether for some people that's an idea, for some people that's items or products or whatever that is. But yeah, I just wanted to get your view, because I think some people, just being completely honest, would look at a feed like yours and say influencer. Others that maybe have a deeper understanding of what it is you're doing would say content creator. But
it is a shame that the word influencer has become so negative, because there is a hell of a lot of work behind it, and I do think a lot of people think that girls kind of like float around taking the odd picture of what they're wearing, and then just get loads of free stuff and free holidays and stuff like that.
That's going to be the very superficial opinion that a lot of people would have.
But I've met some amazing girls through doing it, or through having a go at doing it, and they've done it full time. It is their income, for years now, and they work non-stop.
They're business women, aren't they? Yeah. They're
never not
brand.
working. And people might think, oh, look at you on holiday taking a picture. Yeah, but they are working all the time. Even if it's a holiday that they paid for, that they, with their partner or whatever, it's a great opportunity for content. And that never leaves you. You're doing it all the time. And so you take your phone out and take a few pictures, but there's so much more that goes into it.
If you give a shit,
there
is a lot more.
You care so much because it's you, so that stresses you out. You want to get the shot. You want to make this look great.
And that one picture is like 8,000 pictures.
Oh yeah, it's 8,000 pictures. Yeah. And there's so much that goes into it.
A moment for the spouses that are on the other side.
Wow, yeah. The Instagram husbands, and there's a lot of arguments behind it. And you never ever switch off. So it might look like a lovely job, and it definitely is for a lot of the time, but it is a 24/7 job.
I think that's why it's really interesting to ask, because a lot of people just see pictures on a grid and they just have this perception, but maybe just knowing what goes into it opens people's eyes, doesn't it? Okay,
I feel like we've covered the next question I was going to ask, which what was the moment you realised you could do something together? But that feels like it's been ebbing and flowing. These two sort of like separate streams have gone into each other over a course of
We're meant to be.
years. It does feel a bit fated. I hate that. Makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable saying that, but it does feel fated, doesn't it?
Does,
in a way.
yeah. And I am someone that kind of believes in the timing of everything, and whatever's meant for you won't pass you, and like that, you know. I mean, me just working at the gym, which seemed like really not a huge decision in life, kind of has led to this, which is, I think,
pretty pivotal, isn't
something
it?
quick, quite big. And it just might not have happened that way had I not decided, do you know what, I'd actually rather work on gym reception than here. So and that was all that
and
went
you could
into
argue
it.
like that's taking you, working on gym reception is taking you, no one's doing that strategically to think it's going to get me closer to this goal of working in fashion or whatever that is.
No.
But it just shows you sometimes you go with the flow.
Yeah,
and see
and
what happens at the
sometimes
back of it.
you have to make. I've started to make decisions over what was better for my mind and my well-being.
Yes,
and that has led me to. Well, I'm pretty sure it's leading me to the sort of career that I really want.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. Nice.
Yeah, and the life that I want as well.
Yeah.
Because when all that time that I was in buying, it was great, but it is hardcore, and I don't know if that's what I'd want to do now. I kind of always thought that I'd love to work for myself, and I'm not very good at being told what to do. Even though I struggle with confidence and think deep down I know what I want, and I think I know a great way to do it, and I do struggle when someone's sort of like, it should probably be done like that, and I'm just like, I don't think so.
Wrong.
So, working with just one other person and us being very different, like Bex brings the things that I'm not so sure on, and hopefully vice versa.
Yeah, definitely.
No one's telling someone else what to do. It just kind of clicks.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the moment where we can say the really cliche thing that drops the company name in as well. Like, oh, it looks like you formed.
We have formed a connection.
I'm so glad you said it.
Connection.
A connection.
So I'll give you an opportunity now to talk about this venture. With then, so you've now launched the Connection Ltd, which is this joint venture, which is amazing. What is there a specific gap that you are looking to fill? Is there something you've acknowledged or identified in the way things are being done by businesses now that you think?
Yeah, it's shit. No,
Generally speaking.
Bex can answer this one.
Sorry. I feel like there's a lot of garbage out there with people. There are some great social media marketers out there and marketeers out there, and there's a lot of crap because I feel like social media management is one of those things that people will be like, oh, this is great, I can do this, I can work from anywhere, and I can just post people's content. And
I think similar to being an influencer, it's also something that people scroll on and they're like, oh, I could do that. There are actual skills involved, and not everyone can do it.
And there needs to be some strategy behind it. And it drives me into insanity because I'm like, what is the fucking point? And there's a lot. I promise I wouldn't swear that much. And I said 5 times, and I've definitely gone over 5.
I feel like you're all right. No,
Okay.
you're skirting around that number. That's okay. You do you.
And I get frustrated that people are just blindly putting stuff out there with no real strategy as to what they're trying to do, or they don't have a clear brand, and they're just putting garbage out there. So I felt like there was a real opportunity to help businesses and personal brands to actually develop something cool whilst also having a bloody point to it. And we felt like there was a real gap to do things quite differently. There isn't like a cookie cutter social media management approach where basically you do 10 different versions of the same post for 10 different companies that all look the same. That we charge a single flat rate and everyone gets the same, and it is what it. We believe in a very bespoke, tailored approach to meet your business needs. Whether that is a tiny small business that can't afford to have a social media management, but they just want some cool content, then cool, we'll do that for you. Or a much bigger business that is like, we want to have nothing to do with it, but this is the objective. We want to feel like you're part of the team and you run with it.
Yeah, nice.
And I think that's what we do differently. We care a lot about the strategy and what the point is to the content, because it's not just like cute, pretty boxes. If it's not you're not gonna get the ROI on it.
I was just about to say ROI. Yeah, okay.
Like, and there's lots of people that do it that have no like business sense, because they've never been in a position like that to worry about all the other things. They're just posting really nice swishy videos and pretty pictures.
Yeah,
And sometimes not so nice.
No.
Videos.
I mean, going back to your point about this perception that the barrier to entry is really low, that everyone can go, I can have a crack at that, and just using the tools that are maybe available natively on the apps and all this stuff, and they're just thinking, I'd have a run at it. But I think definitely some commercial awareness is key to get the return on investment.
Yeah.
And when you're thinking about budgets that are usually the first things to be slashed during more difficult economic climates, marketing, branding, all of these things are the first thing to go, because how do you qualify and how do you quantify the investment you're putting in there?
Yeah.
So to have that driving the content you're creating, I think is really important. And you've already described that both of you have got that commercial mindset too.
Definitely, and I think we're quite data driven as well, which maybe surprises people sometimes. But when we're talking to companies, especially like we're talking to some restaurants at the moment, which is an avenue, a field that we think we can really make a difference to. But 44% of Instagram users use it to post about food and to find restaurants. 44%. So why the fuck would you cut a marketing budget when that makes the difference for your business? Like, I think, I can't remember the statistics, but it's like 90% of Gen Zs will only go to a restaurant if they can take a picture. Yeah. And it's an Instagrammable venue. Yeah. It's insane. Yeah. And a lot of these businesses are run by people who aren't in a social media era. They're in hospitality.
About the food or the service or the environment.
And that's amazing. But the best way to communicate that you've got great food and great service, unfortunately now, is through the little apps that we open on our phones every day.
Yeah.
And
you need a jazzy
don't
toilet
necessarily
for
know
girls
about that. Yeah. And there's so many simple things you can do that mean that your customers are going to be marketing for you.
Yeah. I am going to ask a question at this point, because I feel specific, and I know your partner Gabs, and I know obviously Ed really well. I feel like maybe with the branding stuff, so we're talking about this scenario where people go to restaurants, take pictures of their food and upload it to social media. Now, Ed, I'm speaking specifically about Ed, very, very keen on being mindful and present and in the moment.
Yeah.
How does it ever come at odds to you that sometimes you're promoting things to be seen and snapped and done on social, but then that's taking people away from that more engagement with the experience? That's what comes to my mind sometimes.
Yeah, but you don't. I mean, Amy's queen of food pics, but I do like to take her food pics.
They are good.
Yeah, they're very good. She's very good.
At the Connection.
I'm like, damn it, Amy's picture's better than mine. But Ed gets fucked off because he just wants to eat his food, and I make him stop so I can take a picture. So I think that's why mine aren't as good. I'm going to blame him because I feel under pressure.
I think that's maybe more where I'm getting with it. It's the relationship dynamic between like, you're doing what you're doing for a living with people that maybe not always there in that same mindset and just want. I just want to be.
It can
present.
be. Oh yeah. And trust
but you're
me.
also not doing it the whole time. Like I don't sit on every time we go out for. I'm like, can I film you putting it in your mouth? You're not like doing it the whole time, are you?
Do you know
I'm like, wait, no one touches it while it looks pretty. Okay, and we're off.
The camera eats first.
Yeah,
that's a great. I've never heard it. That's amazing. Okay, right. Yeah.
And trust me, there have been arguments at the dinner table in a restaurant of like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like
just stop.
You know.
But it's a commitment to the craft. That's the way I'm going to describe it. It's
And through my Instagram, I have had some lovely invites to restaurants for complimentary dinners.
Nice,
so, you know,
okay.
then Gabriel has to suck it up, I'm afraid. You're not paying for that steak, so I'll be taking a picture of it first. But I think, he's got used to it now and actually quite happy to be in the pictures. Well, his hands are in the pictures.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, it's like, could you send me that so I can...
Of course
it? And I'm
it
like,
is,
okay.
Yeah, Ed does that too.
Getting
He's like,
involved now,
it's so annoying, stop taking pictures of me. And he's like, that one's
That's
quite
a cool
nice.
picture.
I'll put that on my feed.
Yeah, I'm like,
So,
quite good at this actually. People pay me to do it. So
Yeah, I'll send you my invoice.
But there are definitely moments I spend a lot of time on my phone. So there are definitely moments, especially in the evening, it's quite often my like catch up time to like engage on people's accounts where we're so busy like actually posting our own content.
Yeah, replying
And
to messages and
that can be hard because like Ed is like, just put your phone away, and I'm like, I can't finish working yet. So sometimes it's like I'm literally on my phone from the minute I wake up at like 5 a.m. till the minute I go to bed.
Because I think societally now there's so much more focus on getting this balance right and minimising phone usage and stuff. And for you guys, that's just not, if you tried to do the job you did without having social media apps open,
I've never been good at balance, as we've established. Balance, like, is not my
in your
friend.
vocab.
Yeah. But we do have chats about it, and we'll be going somewhere and Ed's like, let's just have some time off the phone, and I'm like, okay. And sometimes I just give it to him. I'm like, you just take it, because it's a habit.
Oh God, yeah.
It's a habit that's quite hard.
It's addictive.
And it is addictive.
This,
So sometimes I'll be like, right, take my phone. If we're at home in the evening, I'm like, just take it away from me, because if it's there, I'll just do it without thinking sometimes. I don't even realise I've done it, which just shows you that,
Well, it's even if it's not there, it's like the weight of your phone in your pocket.
So
So
weird,
hyper-conscious of it now.
Yeah. I've actually got like repetitive strain from
But that's a real thing, It's strange. Like, I don't do what you guys do for a living, but I go to my app. So LinkedIn is, I literally live on LinkedIn. My phone will go to where that icon is on my phone, and it's terrifying. And I just do it mindlessly.
I've moved some of my apps. So I have to be a bit more conscious about finding.
Exactly,
I don't
being
think
conscious, isn't it?
I don't think it's mainly. It just takes me a bit longer to get there. Yeah.
So going back to the point, you had very strong views on what some companies and businesses. No, I love that, because you've got very clear ideas of maybe some of the wrong things people are doing when they're promoting brands, telling stories, doing marketing without any sense of what's your return, what's your goal here. Okay. And that commercial mindset, that commercial background, I think would be an asset to anyone that's looking.
And I think
for that help.
over time, I mean, we're not that far in, but as things develop, it's not even limited to social media. What we want to do,
Yeah, we've been working like creative events. And we're about to take on an interiors project, and so we're so invested in the brand when we work with people
and
that we end up feeding into different areas because social media,
it's just the start of it.
Yeah, and it impacts so much stuff.
Yeah.
I think we're sitting in quite a creative direction realm as well, that we end up styling some of our clients, and we do these big shoot days, and then we get invited to actually work and do the events and get involved in more of that stuff, like the set and the styling. So it's almost broader than social, but
okay.
That's it. That was the initial idea and sort of how we've started. But
So do you see growth beyond where you are now? So you two being a partnership now, do you see that growing to bring more people under the Connection banner?
Definitely. We'd love to have, like...
Not putting the cart before the horse, but it sounds like with those plans, then you'd need to. Yeah.
I mean, it would be great to have, like, our own agency, working with... There are so many amazing, talented creatives that we get to work with. We work with an amazing creative production team. We've got a roster of amazing photographers and people that we work with, and we'd love to build more of that,
that's so cool.
Yeah, so that people come to us and they can trust us to handle it all.
Yeah.
Because we've got the people and we've got the contacts and we've done so much of this before. We've built websites for different people. We've styled people for different things. We've made the costumes. We've done the event space. We've done the set styling and the BTS. So we've got so much experience and we've learned the hard lessons of working with the people that you don't want to work with. So we've also had that, you know, I've done shoots where the photographers lost all of the film footage. Like I've, you know, worked on some shoots where paid a fortune for the set and the set's fallen apart. Like we've learned the lessons to protect other businesses from going through what we've had
I mean, you've gone through the shit. Yeah. I mean, you've literally seen what works, seen what doesn't, and hopefully that experience helps you filter it all out so you're not passing that on to...
Exactly. So it's more than us taking cute pictures for your Instagram.
It's definitely more.
We're trying to say.
And if that is come across as I think that, it's definitely not what I think we're trying to... But you're completely right. You're bringing some real depth to that. It's all evolving really fast. Like all the changes and how all the technology behind it is working. So how do you, I guess I already know the answer to this, but how are you keeping up with all the trends and that evolution and the way the tech changes or the way people are even engaging with that form of marketing? Is it by doing the job? You're doing it, you're immersing it, aren't you? So I guess you just see it.
Yeah, you live and breathe it, I guess. Yeah, it's all there for you to...
Yeah, we're quite geeky. So we like
you
getting into
data,
the marketing and
that,
data. Because it's really interesting and we have that business acumen side of it. So I want to understand what those are. I want to understand what the return is. But I also think it's really, really important to know your brand and know you don't have to jump on every trend that comes. I think that's a really, really important thing. And you need to have a really, really clear brand strategy and mission and values so that you don't jump on some of these trends which aren't right for you. Yeah. And I think that can very easily happen when you're like, oh, there's this viral sound going on, or there's this viral, if I take a video, I can just film myself tapping my keypad and on this viral, and it's going to go viral. Cool. What's the point of it though? So I think
it's a vanity thing, isn't it, for a lot of people? And we've had this discussion in the gym. I get so frustrated with this. I don't know, these tribes of people that are all churning out the same viral structure or format of the same post on TikTok or Instagram. It's just insert
try this
your
Instagram
face
hack,
here.
Try this TikTok hack. Yeah. And it's like, but there's no point to it if you don't know why you're doing it.
It's not authentic either, is it?
It isn't, no. And it all looks the same and then you just get like lost in it. So it's important to know when to jump on a trend and when to just do your thing, know your brand. You don't have to go viral for it to make a difference to your business.
Yeah, true.
And sometimes that's not always the best thing, you know. But knowing your customer, knowing who you're trying to sell to, knowing your brand messaging, knowing who you are, the DNA, the mission of your brand is more important to me.
So that's what I was going to say. So before, as advice to anyone that is at the very early start of this journey, or maybe they want to develop or evolve what they're doing, it's the sitting down part of it and actually getting that shit in order first, the strategy before you start, scattergun posting on every single form of social media that you can, or start an advertising thing.
We're like, what's your why?
Yeah, okay.
Why are you trying to do it? Why do you want to go viral on TikTok? What's the point? What are you trying to do?
It's a good sense check, isn't it, for people? Because a lot of people ask me that. When I started using TikTok for the first time, I'm talking about recruitment tips. Like, it's not sexy stuff. But someone asked me why. It's educational and
that works on TikTok.
Apparently so. Like, I feel like I've got a decent following on that platform. But someone asked me why, and I was like, that's a good point. Because I started getting sucked into some of those very, those trends. And I was just like, I'm doing it for vanity. I'm doing it so I can start to see bits and pieces tick over. It was for the wrong reason. So sometimes that sense check is what's your why, what direction, what's the goal.
Exactly. Yeah. And then it's easy to make yourself accountable or your business accountable to be like, oh, we don't know if this is right for us or not. Okay, let's go back through. What's the mission? What's the values? What we're trying to do? Yeah. Who's our customer? Who we're trying to talk to? Oh, we're talking to like this demographic. Okay, this isn't right then.
Yeah.
Or actually, it would be interesting to like test it and let's try it. So yeah, I think knowing your why, knowing your story, knowing the brand mission values is so important before you just start blindly posting on social media.
And that works if you're a brand, business, restaurant, or if you're doing it yourself.
Yeah.
Because through where I've been doing it personally as well, I signed to an agency about a year or so ago. And after a few months of some lovely paid jobs, then there wasn't really a lot going on. And they kind of said to me, oh, you should try doing this. You should try doing this talking video where you do this. You should, and send me references of other creators. Do something like that. And for a second, you have to just think, but that's not me. No. That's not what I want to do. Or that's not what I, and I kind of had to rethink then whether that was right for me. So I parted ways with them. And yeah, you have to know who you are and just be confident in that, see that through. You don't have to,
And the problem is, if you're trying to just go viral and you're trying to appeal to everyone, you'll appeal to no one.
Yeah.
Because you don't know who you're talking to.
Yeah.
And that is often the biggest problem, I think, with people with social media is that you do need to have a niche.
Yeah.
You need to know who you're trying to talk to so you can create the right content, which is like educational for them.
Yeah.
That's
engaging for them.
Disruptive for them. Like you're speaking to a need or a want that they have.
Yeah.
And if you're not, you're just pissing in the wind.
Well,
because there's so much there.
By trying to please everyone, you're pleasing no one.
Yeah, exactly. Make sure you please yourself first of all. Do it for
and have some like integrity in what you're doing that you
are
know
proud
it's
of
right.
it. Yeah.
It's a really, like, I don't know, it feels like a real timely reminder for me too, because I feel like I've gone through a process in the last few months of trying to diversify. And in a sense, that has broadened me slightly. And then it was literally over the last couple of weeks, I've gone, no, fuck that. That's not who I am. That's not aligning with the way I want to do things or the brand that I've built. I've gone back to what I was doing, which I'm not saying is perfect, but it's more in line with who I am.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be perfect. And that's part of it too.
Yeah.
Like,
just needs to be authentic, doesn't it?
It needs to be authentic. And actually, sometimes, like, on social, they'll do these really swishy campaigns, these like high spec, high res models, cameras, and it doesn't resonate with the customer like you doing a selfie video talking through the collection does. Because it feels more personal. It feels like they're part of it. It's got more integrity to it. It feels more honest and valuable. So there's room for both.
Yes.
There needs to be that mix. And I think sometimes people get so caught up with everything being perfect that then they don't post at all.
Yeah. It's like paralysis, isn't it? You get stuck there and you're just thinking, I'm not going to start.
Yeah.
Yeah, which also happened to me for a while. I was doing it on my own and being stuck in my own head. I was just overthinking everything. Oh, that's not good enough. So I just, which another good reason why Bex is
it definitely feels like a really good
I feel like I'm the opposite. I'm like,
she's like, come on, let's get on with this and see what happens. I'm like, okay, but let me just tick the spelling. That's basically how we work.
Yeah, I mean, caption queen over here. I'm like, black heart. And Amy's like, well, and I'm like, yeah, they're really good words, to be fair.
The English degree isn't completely going to waste.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Okay, so some of the copywriting stuff is coming in handy.
Oh, she's an absolute wizard with that, and I'm useless.
Well, there you go. That's it. It's complementing all these things, isn't it? Do you think that AI is going to have an impact in what you're doing? And the reason I ask that, I've been exposed to loads of tools that are promoted on LinkedIn all the time about how, photography, so brand images, video production, all this stuff. It sounds silly. It will have an impact on the industry. Of
course.
I guess it's more of a statement. Like, how do you feel about that? You've got to embrace it, learn elements of it.
Yeah,
is that your view?
I think there are, like anything, there are some wonderful parts of AI. Like, as a creative tool, it can be used in a really exciting, innovative way. Or it could be another thing that processes beige info and beige content. So I think, like, I've tested some of the, the ChatGPT stuff to do captions or write things, and I'm just like, ew, most of the time. I just don't feel it. It doesn't feel human.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it will get there. I'm sure there'll be jobs lost. I'm sure it will affect people in ways, but not if you're shit hot at your game.
Yeah.
Not if you understand people and you really know how to emotionally communicate with them
And connect.
Connect.
AI, yeah.
That is like, it is where the name came from, and the explanation behind it was about, And I don't know if you're going to be able to create that connection with the people you're trying to engage by using it.
No, I agree.
Then we're into feeling and emotion and connection. That's what we're into.
Yeah. We can't roll your eyes when you're saying connection, Aimée. It's the name. But no, so I'm saying this from a position of being like a big AI cynic. Like, I'm not a fanboy of AI.
Yeah.
I have got real concerns about how it's going to be. When I say weaponized, I don't mean firing weapons, but like how people can use it for nefarious means. I think a lot of people have described it as a force multiplier for people that are really good at what they do. And that might be right. I'm very reticent of going and moving forward with it and embracing it too much for a range of reasons.
Yeah.
I'm also from a family of creatives. My mum, my brother are artists. And I have people posting AI generated art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is a personal opinion. I can't stand that people are calling it art because, in the purest sense, I don't agree with that. That's going to be, that's contentious.
I guess like anything, it's a tool. Like a pen is, like paint is. It can be a tool to create. So I don't know if I entirely agree with you there. I think you can create. There are some artists that I follow that do create some AI stuff.
So this is where the counter argument usually comes from. Maybe I'm just not digesting enough of it because I am so.
Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of tripe out there as well. Yeah. There's like there's a lot of crap, but I do think there are some people doing some special things. But I also agree that I think we do have trouble on our hands as this. I think there will be some huge complications with it. Yeah. And I think at what point can't we control this? But I don't know. I'm not totally anti it, but we don't use it. No. And that's intentional.
That to me is like music to my ears. That's not a thing. And who's to say you may adopt certain technologies if it's if something comes up in the future that aligns with what you want to do. For me, and I guess the reason I bring it up, I think the way that you're going to be able to differentiate yourself as a brand moving forward is not using it.
Totally.
Is keeping it real, doing the behind the scenes stuff to show the humans behind the process rather than super polished. I've just got so many concerns with it, but it's. I thought it was important to bring up.
There was an interesting LinkedIn thing which I should send you actually from in the producer circuit, and it's an agency, an event agency that I've worked with before, and he was reviewing an event that had gone live that was entirely AI. So like the production of it had been done by it's been organised. It had been like everything had been done by AI, and it was a shit show.
Yeah.
Because
good.
It felt beige. It felt bland. Yeah. It felt like the messaging was off. It felt like they weren't really resonating with anyone because you need humans to talk to humans to a certain extent. So yeah.
I think you've answered the question to this. Can either of you go out and enjoy yourselves and be completely present in the moment without thinking of a way of framing something, promoting something, or being cynical, or let's say
critical
of where you are? Do you find that hard, or do you just embrace the fact that actually that's a quality and a skill that pays you?
I do. Yeah, I kind of just embrace it and see it as see it as a positive.
Yeah.
I don't mind it. That it's just like
No.
eyeing up opportunity, inspiration.
Yeah.
It just comes from all those places. Like if we are going out for a meal, on a holiday, whatever, everywhere is. Oh, I'll just
It's
take
a
pictures of that 'cause
canvas
I'm
of some
gonna refer to
description.
that.
Yeah.
We
And
could do
I-
that. We could do that. Yeah.
And I feel like even from a strategy perspective or anything like that, I'm like someone will be like, oh, this thing's happened, I'm not sure what to do. And I'm like, you should do this with your business. Have you?
Yeah, yeah.
I think you don't switch that off.
Yeah.
I don't think it.
And it might sound a bit cheesy, but I think the way that we are, those sorts of things or conversations or those experiences, like you get energized by that. Those sorts of things that you find inspiring actually makes you feel good, which I think is why it feels like such a natural thing to try and, carve out our
And you go to those
business
spaces driven by maybe a certain thing, and you meet people who are also like, and you get other creatives.
Yeah,
that
you meet like-minded
and it's
people through the
yeah,
experience,
exactly.
yeah.
So,
Well, as long as you are energized by it, I guess then there's no harm in it, is there? When it becomes laborious, that's when you might realise I need to change my relationship with that.
Yeah.
If that doesn't happen, then fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
So, great,
Yeah, that kind of stuff, energises me, I think. Stuff
I think it needs
stuff
to
that, like,
from what you're doing.
tires me is like social interaction.
Yes.
Like, stuff
Podcasts.
but no, not this at all.
no, like going to a party, I'm like, fuck that.
Yeah, and engaging with people you don't really know, or that's to me. I'm like,
the
I'm
networking
exhausted.
stuff.
Oh, God,
I'm completely
we
the
don't.
same.
Yeah.
I'm
I mean,
completely the same.
you're better because you go to like social events and stuff.
Yeah, but sometimes
I'm
it takes
awful.
it out of you. Like,
I don't care.
Yeah.
I know it's thing.
You should know that
I'll
about
work
yourself,
the
though,
event.
yeah.
I'll like be behind the scenes. I'll do the thing, but do I want to be in a room for no, not really. I know I can do it, but I just would rather be at home with the dogs.
Yeah,
On my
I
phone.
definitely recharge like alone at home.
Yeah. I need that
so
space. But I also love a good walk without my phone. I think that's important too. Like
disconnecting.
Yeah.
One of the running themes in this podcast throughout season 2 have been like my observation is that we've got a really high concentration of creatives, entrepreneurs, business owners around Leigh-on-Sea and Southend. So everyone in season 2 falls into that bracket in some way, shape or form. So I have been asking, what do you think? First off, do you think there's any sense in that? And then do you feel there's a particular reason as to why that's the case in our little pocket of the world? Do you think there's sense in it, first off? You can say no. You can say you don't agree.
I think there is, and I think there isn't. I feel like when I was younger, growing up around here, it was really cool. There were lots of like little micro indie things going on, and there were like bands or club nights or little tiny
Ed said similar things, to be fair.
And I feel like there are lots and lots of people who are creating businesses and self-employed and that sort of thing, maybe more so than there were then. But I feel like there's a lot of people who are doing the same thing.
Mortgage advisors. Recruitment agents.
Yeah. Or like things that are like, oh, that coffee shop's working. Let's open a coffee shop.
Yeah.
You don't know anything about coffee. You haven't got a brand, but you just
They're
open one
piggybacking something that's already done well.
Like, pizza restaurants. Let's open 8 pizza restaurants. And I'm just like, can someone have a new idea, please?
Yeah.
Like, can you actually see an opportunity and come up with your own version of what that is? I guess that's why I get frustrated. But.
yeah.
So there's definitely examples of what you've just described. So give me some examples in, let's say, Leigh specifically, where maybe there is some. I can think of a couple where they're bucking that trend. So June Store for me is one of them that is
Definitely.
really sort of
Incredible
bit of a disruptor
branding,
and
knows who he's talking to, knows his customer, and is testament to something like that where people are like, skate shop's never going to work in Leigh.
Yeah. And it's like such a staple. So Bex has just said, for anyone that's listening, June Store is a skate shop. So like I feel like back when I was a kid, back in sort of like mid-90s, skate shops were more of a thing. There used to be some down south in High Street, but that whole culture has kind of gone through a bit of a resurgence.
Dave is incredible.
Right.
And it's like, it's a donut shop, it's a coffee shop, it's a skate store. He creates ice creams out the back.
Yeah.
He like does all the artwork and designs the T-shirts. He's just knows who he's selling to, and he's selling to that person everything he can, and that is fucking great business. You know, like he knows his customer and so well that while he's got them, they might walk in. They can't afford to buy skate shoes all the time. They can't afford to buy a new deck all the time. But they can afford to go and get a flat white, and
really
they can afford a vanilla donut. So, and he also keeps them in there for longer. It's great.
So what about you, Amy? Maybe if I focus more on food.
Well, I was just going to mention George and Roll Boys.
Okay,
You must be aware of, because
I've still not had.
John. Oh my God. And I think we had, like, if you're going to talk social media, like, he's a great reference in our local town, because he's created one product which tastes delicious, but he's created a whole brand behind it, a whole identity
and an
behind
incredible
a cinnamon
story.
roll.
He is a great storyteller.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, he's just a perfect example of like reeling people in.
Someone that's doing it right.
With an Instagram platform initially, and then a great product to back it up, and
doing something different. Like he's tackled it in a completely different way. He's done it in a very George way, and it's incredible. And he is going viral and getting mad engagement, but it's driven for the right reasons.
Yeah, I remember, I think when it was on the lead up to Christmas, when all the shops opened late in Lee, and his post, he did a reel on Instagram that was him just trying to announce the time even that Roll Boys and where it was going to be, and it was just fucking up every time. So it was him doing it, and then just giving up and walking away. And I remember, oh my God, I watched every bit of that.
Because you also resonate, because you're like,
because I've done it. It was so clever. And I spoke to Andy about it at the time. I think I remember going into Cult the next day and saying, That was conscious, wasn't it? Like, he actually, I don't know if he's a very good actor or whatever it was, but he turned a fuck up into something really engaging and relatable.
Yeah.
And I thought that was brilliant. And that's where the sort of authenticity comes from, isn't it?
It's very I think he's at peace with being a little bit vulnerable on there, very honest. Yeah. And that's all helping people engage as well with his whole story and brand
he
development.
won't mind me saying this either, but he's come from a background of failed business,
right? Which
I think is really important. And I think a lot of people that they've learned hard lessons, like it's the same with Ed with Rom, you know, like he's had a couple of, you know, failed businesses and they take their toll, but you learn the lessons. And anyone that goes straight in and creates a successful business straight away don't always learn those lessons then. And I think that's really, really important. So you can be more vulnerable, and I think it's refreshing to see that on social media, as long as it's not false bullshit, which there is a lot of that as well.
Right, we are done. But there is a closing tradition on the podcast.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's your mum, isn't it?
Amy doesn't know this.
Oh, it's
fine. It's fine. It usually outs the people that haven't listened all the way through a podcast before, and that's not an issue.
I'm a good girl. I'm a good girl.
So basically, the tradition on the podcast is that the closing question comes from my mum, which Bex has just said. So my mum has played quite a big part in my marketing. This is the budget that I've got to work with, just because I think she's hilarious, whether she knows it or not. It's kind of like a twisted thing from like Stephen Bartlett's podcast, which I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah,
it's doing all right.
Oh, that little thing.
I can't remember the name of it, but they get a guest to leave a question from the previous guest. But I didn't want to do that, obviously.
No, Mum's way better.
Yeah. So let me
she
just. She
also poses really good questions.
Well, we'll see.
Don't stitch us up, Mum.
God, does she remember me from school?
She does, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, who knows? She might have referenced that. It's only 13 seconds long, so we'll see. So I don't listen to the question.
Oh, okay.
So this
love
is the
that.
thing. Right,
okay.
See if we can get it now.
Hi, Amy and Bex. As an artist, what do you think are the 3 main considerations when building or developing your brand? Thank you very much.
So Mum's asking for free consulting.
I like your style.
Very clever.
She's asking for some free advice, basically.
We've got you, Mum.
I mean, so my mum's Lisa. If you wanted to direct an answer, you don't have to give 3 reasons. But what do you think maybe are the core things then that you need to
consider? Yeah.
Cheeky, Mum. Thanks for that.
Oh, Lisa.
And I think mum's coming from a position of being a creative person too. So if that can have a slant, or if that even makes a difference, I don't know if it does.
I think we've probably discussed and covered,
I think knowing who you're trying to communicate to or connect
knowing your audience,
to,
okay.
it's incredibly important in whatever realm that is, whether it's from a business perspective, whether as a creator, whether as an artist, whether you need to know who you're trying to connect with.
And why, which we bang on about all the time. Why are you doing this? Why are you creating whatever it is that you want someone to
buy
eat
into
or drink or wear or whatever? What does it mean to you?
It's gone then. Pressure time. Last one. You've done 2.
I think knowing your truth, I think that needs to play. You need to know who you're trying to communicate to, who you're trying to talk to. I think you need to understand the story behind it, and you need to feel at peace with it. I think it needs to feel, you can tell when someone's trying to be someone else. And I think that comes through in art, in anything else. You need to develop your own style that is...
And you need to be at peace, peace with it and with who you are.
I mean, we have very different styles. But our objective is the same. So, but if I tried to be Aimée, I'd look ridiculous because I'm not the polished version that she is. I'm a bit of a scruff bag and covered in sketchy toes. And,
but at the same time, Bex is pulling off some looks that you would just laugh me out of. Do you know what I mean? But that's fine because that's who
really
we are,
important.
and we're comfortable with that. And I think that's probably another reason why, just to harp on about timing again, is I probably haven't been comfortable with who I am, what I want to be, what I want to do, and not as comfortable as I am right now today. So it's all good timing that Bex has said, do you know what, I think I don't want you to just help me out with this idea. I want us to be a partnership. 50-50, let's bring what we've got to the table. And I was like, do you know what, I can do that. I believe I can do that. I believe I can bring 50% of this to the table without doubting my ability, which is what I've probably done for years.
But it takes an evolution to get there, and I think that's really important. You have to experiment with different things to actually find, no, this is it.
And you have to fail, which is the bit that I struggled with.
Whether you're an artist or not, and you try a different style, or you try AI, or you try this, and you're hated it. I don't feel at peace with what this is. And I think that comes from a style perspective or anything. I've definitely looked at other people and I'm like, oh, they look so polished and they look so nice and clean and tidy all the time. I'm going to try and pull that off, and I look fucking ridiculous. It's not something that I can do, and I know that now. So I'm never going to have that slick, clean girl aesthetic because it does not work for me. But Mob Wife, got you.
She's nailed it.
I've got you.
But then also referring back to social media playing into all these things, because obviously if you're creating something now, art or whatever it is, you are probably sharing it on a platform. You might get 10,000 likes or you might get 4. You need to know that you like that and you're happy and you're
really
proud of it.
Does it connect
all
with
of that,
you?
All of that shit can really get into your head as well.
And if you know yourself and you know it, you've got a barrier.
Awesome.
There you go, Mum. I don't know what they're going to charge you for that, but I think that was a pretty good response. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ladies, that was an absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed that conversation. I don't want it to end. I'm conscious of timing and everything, but I think we've covered all the bases. But thank you so much. That was amazing.
No, thank you for having us.
Cool.
It's been so good.
Thanks for listening to Jobsworth. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to like and subscribe. You can stay connected by following me on LinkedIn for more insights on the world of work, behind the scenes content, and updates on upcoming episodes.